And how many times I've had women say to me, oh my gosh, he pulled out a vacuum cleaner and I almost had an orgasm. Like I wanted to have sex with him. And men will say to me, oh my gosh, if all I have to do is pull out a vacuum cleaner, I can do that, because in their mind, they need the sex because that gets them closer. And in a woman's mind, oh my God, he took out the trash, he dusted, and I didn't have to remind him.
Did you push record?
Welcome back to Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life. Hey, Silka.
Hi, Paige. We are continuing our conversation today on, we're returning to love and relationships, which, you can never get enough of that.
Right.
And we've been talking to some pretty interesting experts in this field, one of which is Richard Drobnik, the director of the Mars and Venus Counseling Center in New Jersey. And I know you're a big fan of the book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right?
Right. It's a great book. I mean, it's been around for a long time and it's been used in so many different ways, coaching, counseling, and they give a really great way of explaining how different a man's brain is versus how different a woman's brain is.
Well, and in there lies, a lot of the conflicts that arise in a relationship, in a marriage, and starting over again. And once we realize what that is, and Richard and I, we went through some very specific points that he talks to in this article, which we will link to. But I wanted to, again, get your take on these differences and how do we, put this understanding to work for us?
Well, I think in the book, if people haven't read the book, it's a really, really good read. And there is scientific research that certain parts of a male's brain doesn't light up the way a certain part of a female's brain does. So right there's a big component. So there's different communication styles, too, of a way a man operates and a way a woman operates. But I also have to say, and I don't know if he said this to you or not, but you can be in a relationship, whether it's a homosexual relationship or a heterosexual relationship. But for right now, if we take a heterosexual relationship, we expect the man's going to communicate this way, the woman's going to communicate this way. But I have found many times, especially now because women, are growing up differently, stronger, taking leadership roles. They make their own money, and even in our generation, same thing. So what I have found is it's not only just the man who acts like the man. There's women in a relationship who have a lot of the male traits. And sometimes I see the woman has the male traits and the man has the female traits. So it doesn't just go one way because you're a man and you got a penis. It can go it can be used two different ways as well.
It's interesting that you bring that up because Richard said that Dr. John Gray just updated the book, and I believe he addressed just that because we talked about bringing the female side into into the man's brain, etc. So that's interesting. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it for years, and remember too, and some of our viewers might not know this, that each person has what we call female divine energy and male divine energy. Everybody has that. So, and most of us were out of balance with that. So if you have stronger male characteristics and less of the female, it's going to be difficult to communicate. So it's all about balance.
Yeah. Well, and I've been told that I have I have much stronger male traits than I do female. So
me too.
Yeah. Maybe
my husband tells me all the time, how high is your testosterone level?
Maybe we both had a penis in past lives.
I know we did, Silka. I know we did, for sure.
Well, how can you give us an example of maybe how that is shifting and how do we recognize that now and deal with it?
So I know he's going to talk about some of those pieces, but I can just give you some different examples. And sex is a big component of it. Because think about it. Most of the time, a woman wants to get close, be intimate long before the sexual act happens, where a man's like needs that sexual act to become close and intimate. And how many times I've had women say to me, "Oh my gosh, he pulled out a vacuum cleaner and I almost had an orgasm, like I wanted to have sex with him." And men will say to me, "Oh my gosh, if all I have to do is pull out a vacuum cleaner, I can do that," because in their mind, they need the sex because that gets them closer. And in a woman's mind, "Oh my God, he took out the trash, he dusted, and I didn't have to remind him as a child." That's one example that's really big about the way men and women relate, differently to things.
Yeah. Well, and he said too, which to me was so simple. It's just if a man just listens, just listen attentively without trying to fix anything. I mean, it's so easy to do. It seems so simple. And a woman, if she doesn't, needs to understand that the man needs his cave time. I love the cave analogy. All of it seems so simple, yet we don't. That's not top of mind when we're in a relationship. So it's always so good to be reminded of this and have these conversations, I think.
It is. And, it brings up another example that I have that I think is really important. And you began to touch on it from the example that you gave. So what I see more and more, women are becoming more the leaders, more the breadwinners. Like roles are changing. So what I see a lot of the time is men will say to me, "If she can do it all, what's my place?" And that's a really big component because men in their caveman kind of way, they need to be able to feel like they're important, that what they bring to the table is important. And if you have a significant other that's a woman who is the breadwinner, who is the caregiver, who's like, who can do it all, I can't tell you how many times men will say, "Well, what's my place?" And then when they don't feel like they have a place, that's when they step out of the relationship.
That's interesting. Very interesting, and it relates directly, to some very close friends of mine who are very successful, and yeah, I totally see that happening more and more.
Yeah, and it's important if the woman is the one that's more the leader and the breadwinner, that she has to realize that you have to still step into your light, still shine brightly, but at the same time be fully aware of what this individual is looking. Everybody needs to feel important in the world, in their community, in their home, and in their relationships.
Well, and then for those of, starting over after 50, we obviously are, a lot of our audience is in that boat, as was I.
Yeah.
What is, just remember this when starting over again. What would that be at this point?
Well, I think it goes back to, what I continue to say that, by the time you're our age, boy, we've lived a lot. We've had so many different experiences. And I tell people often, if you're going to rush in from one relationship to the other, you give no downtime for self-reflection, for getting to know your innate wisdom and knowing, and figuring out, why do I keep attracting the same type of relationship? What am I putting out there that I'm bringing that's just familiar? And familiar doesn't mean it's always good for you. You have to take the time to kind of do that work first. And when you do that work, then you'll learn how to communicate in a healthier way. Make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. And, and just, I think just educating yourself on the different communications. If nothing else, it gives you some peace of mind too, that it really, there's nothing wrong here. This is how we are innately different.
Yes.
And let's deal on that level and communicate on that level. So, we'll obviously link to the article, Richard's article, as well as the book. I mean, everybody should read Men Are From, Mars, Women Are From Venus, and perhaps the updated version, even more so. Anything else, Paige? Otherwise, I think we're just about out of time again.
No, I think I gave you my wisdom for today, Silka.
Well, thank you. We'll see you soon on another episode of Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life.
Thanks.
Bye, Silka.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For more love and relationship advice after 50, visit our website, secondact.tv. And if you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Button's right over here. Thank you.